Hey everyone, and welcome to the Pod of the Damned. I'm your host Ian, and joining me as always is the rest of the trio. First up, we've got Candy. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
I am good. I am good. I think this is going to be an interesting episode. I think because we've sort of danced around this franchise over the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks, and about some of the opinions we may have. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone's got to say about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm curious where it's gonna lie with
yeah,
everybody.
I think so. And also joining us is the third member of our trio, Nico. How's it going?
Good until I listened to you two today.
Yeah, will we just get this like elephant that's been in our chat room out of the way? So obviously, for those who listen to the show regularly, last week we released an episode on our top five most overrated horror movies between me and Candy. I got my days completely mixed up and accidentally released it a day early.
Sure.
I spent the entire day just assuming it was Wednesday, and then it wasn't until like hours after I'd released it, and I was like, it's fucking Tuesday. So everyone
I just
got
thought you were doing something different.
no, it was a complete error. It was a complete error. So I mean everyone got the content a day early, so it's fine. But yeah, Nico, so obviously last week we did our top fives on our most overrated horror movies. Thank you so much to everyone who's listened to that so far. Nico, you have some thoughts about the picks that me and Candy picked. Do you have a top five off the top of your head, by the way, that you might want to share?
I just listened to it today, but number one, I know it would be number one.
What is your
And you mentioned it.
What was it?
Blair Witch,
Blair
100%.
Witch. I didn't put.
I
I don't
see
think.
that.
I don't think either of us put it in our top fives. I think it was an
You
honorable.
It did
mentioned
come up
it.
in conversation, but I don't think we placed
Yeah,
it. No.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I think it was some of our listeners had put it into the top fives, so it definitely
Yeah.
got brought up in conversation.
But yeah, Conjuring and heaps of stuff like that. There was a lot of it. I was like, yeah, my top five, all five got mentioned. But your top five, both years, I feel personally attacked, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, why would that be?
Because, like, well, for example, you said you were talking about VR. Freddy versus Jason. I am the market for that. Like, it was built for me.
No.
100%.
Listen,
It was like I am that age group that was dying for it when it came out. I
So, I mean,
100% agree with
technically,
you,
so
Ian.
am I, but it disappointed me.
See, I was
We're
in
not
that
that far
cinema
apart in age.
gripping that foot. See, I think it was perfect the way it was because it was so bad it was good, like what Ian said.
Oh, it
oh,
was
okay.
so
I was going to
bad.
say I thought you were giving me shit for this one here, and I was like, I kind like. Listen, it's a
I
horrendous.
thought you knew of my
Yeah.
hatred.
It's a horrendous movie, but I did
It's
kind of
terrible.
defend it a smidge, a smidge.
Like you wonder who that was for. It was for me. It was like they did it
In
specifically for me.
fairness, Candy, if you think about it, if there was ever a movie that you would be like, Nico would love this, I think that might actually be it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that does track. I just have a hatred for it because I am the demographic as well. And it was like so fucking disappointing. And everybody's like, oh, but it's so great. And then when it had its 20th anniversary or whatever last year, they're like, oh, it's still so great. I'm like, fuck off. No.
It is still so great. And
Um,
the Jason thing, all the way through the Jason series, it hints at him, the whole bully trauma, all that shit is in there. And Freddy versus Jason, they just manipulate that, so he's the one you root for.
okay. Anyways, I don't want us to get too deep down a Freddy versus Jason rabbit hole here
so-
because I
I
did.
will-
So
we
that's
calm
one.
breaths.
Army of Darkness is the next one.
So this is more aimed at me then, yeah.
Yeah. Like the best one in the whole franchise.
It's not.
And you're
It's
saying it's
not.
overrated.
No.
It's not the best
It's-
one. It's
it's
not
just-
even
it's-
close to being the best one in the franchise
It's
because
not.
it literally it's the
It's
one.
my least favorite, to be fair.
It's my least favorite in the franchise. And again, we did qualify this in the episode though by saying like it's not a bad
Nothing-
movie. We still
Yeah.
like it. We still say that pound for pound, Evil Dead is the greatest franchise out there because there's not a bad movie in the franchise. It's
Yeah.
just the one that's not up to par with the rest of them.
I-
It's the
I
one.
sneaked into the cinema to watch this, and it was just epic.
No. So I mean, listen, and this is coming from someone who doesn't believe that Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2 is the greatest in the franchise. I don't believe that any of the first three are the greatest in the franchise. Evil Dead
Ian, oh my god, no.
Evil Dead 2013 is easily by far and away the greatest one in the
We're
franchise.
saving that debate for Ren because remember we have that
We still have
We can
that
talk
to.
about that for years.
Oh yeah, Ren's gonna eat me alive for that
Ren's
one.
gonna be on my team. We're gonna
Yeah,
go on.
he's
that.
definitely gonna eat me alive on that one. But yeah, no, Army of Darkness, like it's easily the worst in the franchise, and it gets so much love to the point of being with the rest of the films. And Evil Dead, like in that original trilogy, Evil Dead 2 for me is like the best one.
Yes.
But like for me, it just doesn't come close, and absolutely deserved to be in my top 5 most overrated horror movies.
And then the last point was I found it hysterical. So both your first picks, I was like, no way are they in there? Like I agreed with the
We
other
started out
person
kind of
both
crazy.
times.
I
Yeah,
can't even remember what my first pick. I know you had what 2018 Halloween.
Yes.
And at number 5, what did I have at
Yeah.
5 again?
I can't even remember now, but I was
it's right
listening
there
to
in my
it.
brain.
X.
I
I had X.
Yeah,
X, yeah.
Ironically.
Well, what a wonderful segue, because don't forget, we are a horror podcast that deep dives into a different topic every single week in our quest to create a leaderboard of the best and worst horror movies of all time. This is episode number 116, and in today's show we're talking about the 2022 movie Pearl, the prequel to X. Before we get into it, if you would like to support the podcast across our social media platforms, you can do so on X at Damn Podcast. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Pod of the Damned. You can subscribe to us at... Nope, I fucked that right up. It doesn't happen often to that extent, but fuck me, I really fucked that up. You can email us at podofthedamned@gmail.com, and you can subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/Pod of the Damned. That did not go well. Candy, where can people find you?
You can find me at Candy Final Girl on X, Candy the Final Girl on Instagram. That's usually where I'm at. I also am on Damned Podcast sometimes. I haven't been the last week, but I'm trying to do better. But yeah, I have a linktree/Candy the Final Girl. Plenty of fun links on there if you want to check out some other things I've done, some writing and things like that.
Nice. Nico, where can people find you? Oh, Nico's internet is gone completely wild. Nico, you may need to like disconnect and reconnect because you are very, very robotic right now.
Yeah, it's like very slow.
I don't know. Oh, hold on. You're moving a bit better now, Nico. Can you hear me? Can you speak? No.
Something wrong with me?
There's definitely something wrong with you, yeah.
Right, 2 seconds.
Oh, hold on. Stop.
Now you're suddenly working.
You seem to be working fine now. Speak again for me.
Okay.
Okay, right.
Hello, how's it going?
Okay, we're gonna crack on with it then. Okay. So on the show this week, we are talking all about Pearl. This movie was released in 2022, was directed by Ty West, and stars Mia Goth, David Cornsweet, and Tandy Wright. I don't have the IMDb plot in front. This is how unprepared I was for this episode this week. I have got nothing in front of me. I was sitting there, I was looking at my notes, and I was like, oh, I've got it all. I managed to get it like all done. Nope. Here, the IMDb plot is as follows. In 1918, a young woman on the brink of madness pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the drudgery, isolation, and lovelessness of life on her parents' farm. Okay, so this is obviously like technically like none of our picks. This is one we've just sort of added in because we will be reviewing Maxxxine in the very, very near future, which has obviously just recently been released to theaters. Used to have seen Maxxxine. I've yet to see Maxxxine. So that's something that we're obviously going to get to. So no spoilers for Maxxxine, please, during this episode. Pearl. So obviously me and Nico reviewed X a while ago, and when X was released to absolute like critical acclaim from the horror fandom. Like it was the movie of the year. It absolutely swept all of our awards that year, all of our major awards. It absolutely swept it. And it was just seen to be like this absolute like powerhouse movie. It was like the horror movie of the year. And I just didn't get it. Like I just didn't get that level of love for it, right? I think, right, X is a perfectly good movie. I do not think X is a bad movie. I think it's perfectly fine. I do not think it is at that level of being this absolute great movie. And the thing is, right, I didn't actually like Mia Goth as well, which we'll get into, was obviously again critically acclaimed for her performance. She got all this love. She became the sort of darling, as we've talked about this quite a few times in a number of episodes now. She became this like sort of darling of the horror world. And off of the back of X, again, I just didn't really get it. Now, I think X is a better movie than Pearl. But I think Mia Goth's performance in Pearl is better than her performance in X.
I agree with that.
So I'm
Talking of X,
Oh.
Candy, have you done your score for it?
Oh yeah. Do you guys want my score
Yeah.
for it?
Go
Well,
for
it'd
it.
be easier.
I mean, Nico's just decided to like derail the conversation. It's fine.
No, I was just being it for the start of it because we've done X and we've marked it, and then it'll give us a judgment of.
Well, this
how
might give you
Candy
guys
feels.
an idea. Maybe knowing now, we can
Okay.
work from there. I gave X a 9
Okay.
because I thought it brought back hagsploitation a little bit, which I was really into. Like whatever happened to Baby Jane's, I went in like the late '60s. Hagsploitation is this weird little subgenre, so it kind of brought that back, and I enjoyed it as a slasher. I enjoyed the double performances of some of the actors in it. I thought it was fantastic. So it was
Yeah.
nice to see a good slasher come along that I enjoyed on so many levels. So
Yeah.
I gave it a 9.
So just to put it into perspective a little bit as well there. So you've given it a 9. Nico, you gave X an 8. And even though I'm sitting here sort of not being the biggest fan of it, I still gave it a 7. So like we're still not we're not talking about low scores here. Your 9 puts it up from 33rd place, by the way, to 26th. So you've just jumped it up
nice.
quite a few places in the leaderboard.
Nice.
I'm interested to know as well. So obviously, like I was saying there about Mia Goth, and I think her performance in Pearl is better, but I think Pearl is not as good a movie. Where do you think, like, is Pearl a better movie than X? Like, where when you sit there and you watch it and you analyze it and you're here with your notes, and someone said to you, right, you can either watch X or you can watch Pearl. You can only choose one. What are you watching? And do you think, given all the do you think our audience, the critics, do you think Pearl will end up higher or lower on the leaderboard?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I usually direct
right.
the question at someone first, and I didn't this time. I was just like,
Okay,
let's give
so
fight,
yeah,
we
no,
can fight over it.
That's fine. So this is a weird one for me because see, when Pearl first came out, I preferred Pearl, but see, rewatching it, I prefer X because I've watched both of them recently. So it's a bit of a strange one because I remember when Pearl came out, I'm like, this is fucking brilliant, absolutely loving it. Saw both of them at cinema, just thought it was brilliant, both of them. I thought she was shit in this, and that's what I loved about it. But rewatching it, I genuinely do think X is a better. I'm very similar to what you were saying. X is a better movie, but she's got a better performance in this. Well, see, if you'd asked me when it first came out, just with the cinema ones, I would have said the other way around.
I mean, like, I agree with you. I think you're right. I think this is not as good a movie. I think, like, for me, there's quite a few issues with this movie. I think the pacing of this movie is just wild and so bizarre and off.
Yeah.
The majority of the action actually happens in, like, what, a 5-minute period, an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. You know, and I get that in that first time we're seeing this sort of I don't even know if you can call it like a descent into madness, because she's pretty crazy from like straight off the bat, and there's a lot of things in that opening scenes that you're a bit like, this is really like uncomfortable, like when she's bathing in front of her sort of disabled father, and it's just all just like
weird.
a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie, when he first came on screen, I thought they were just like wheeling about a corpse. Like, I genuinely thought he was dead, and it wasn't until they started feeding him, I was like, oh, he's actually still alive. So like, I always had this sort of sense of craziness in there.
If I was that dude, I'd want fed to the crocodile. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Like, I'd be like, go on, push back, go on, keep going.
That's probably
keep going. Ignore her.
Probably the best fed crocodile in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Candy, then, your thoughts?
I guess I got to be the outlier here. I loved X when I saw it in theaters. I thought it was fantastic. All the reasons I gave just a little bit ago. But Pearl is kind of right up my alley. It has kind of that feel of older Hollywood that I really dig because I love older films. Particularly like, classics. I get really into those, horror and non-horror. So it had kind of like that Technicolor nightmare vibe to it, and I do like a slow burn, and it was very much more of like a psychological slow burn. It's not action heavy, whereas X was. Um,
Yeah.
so Pearl just kind of when it came along, I wasn't expecting to like it more, but I do. And even when I went to see Maxxxine opening night, and then I came back and I watched Pearl because we were gonna do this recording. I'm like, you know what? After watching Maxxxine, I even like Pearl more than I did before. It's there's something special about that film just from the sound. There's amazing score to it. Like there's everything about Pearl is better. It's a slower thing. It's not for everybody, but it was right up my alley, like a fever dream for me. I love it.
I think I think one of the issues I have with Pearl in particular, like X for me is a much better balanced movie. It's got a lot more action in it. It has moments of levity, but it's also got like that general sort of creepiness factor to it. Like there's that scene, for example, where she's hiding under the bed and Pearl and Howard are like having sex on the bed, and it's disgusting and it's horrible. But there's like that level of uncomfortableness like throughout the movie, and for me, like, there's a lot more character development in X with like the relationships of the characters on screen, because you've got Jenna Ortega and her boyfriend, and then there's what's happening between like the porn stars, and it's just a much more rounded movie for me. And here, I just like. I mean, it's a very tight cast. It's a very tight cast in this movie. There's not a lot of actual sort of characters in here, but I don't feel like we really get any sort of character development, and I think it's because Pearl is fucking crazy right from the get-go. There's no development. She's the same like the entire way throughout the movie, and I genuinely don't think that this film actually adds much to the franchise. I don't think it adds much to the story.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
trying
it's
to
like,
think
as
what
you
I
say,
can
there's
say
no
on that.
build up to it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I agree with Ian with that, because there's genuinely there's zero build up. Like, well, the very first thing you see her do is kill the goose with a fork for no apparent reason and feed it to the crocodile, and yet they're going hungry. You would eat it yourself. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing. She's definitely a few sandwiches short of a picnic. Put it that way.
But I
She's
think like the juxtaposition of it with X is like, because it was like Pearl, an extraordinary, pre whatever or prequel. I think that we knew we were going to start at that point, given everything that we did learn about Pearl and X. It was kind of the story a lot of people seem to want. And I was one of them. I mean, I was kind of like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm interested. And and it coming like smack dab in the middle, and they're saying that there's going to be, right when Pearl came out, they're like, there's going to be a third movie, and I'm going to pretend I haven't seen a third movie
Yeah.
when I'm saying this. Okay, I'm going to wipe my memory of that. But like for me, it was like, oh, this is a neat little middle piece. Um, because we see, sort of this thing at the end of X, and it's just like, nope, you're not going to get what happens next. You're going to get what happens before.
Yeah.
And I was interested in kind of how what Pearl's journey was. She wanted to be a star. She was a dancer. She wanted everybody to know her name. And we already know how things went down. So it's kind of interesting seeing like the beginning of that. I just enjoyed it.
I think for me, one of the things is because, again, and we've talked about this in quite a number of different movies before, is like, are we supposed to feel like sympathetic for Pearl in this movie? Like, who are we supposed to sort of root for in this film? Because
no one.
We don't root for the family. Well, we can't root for the father because the father has nothing to do. The mother's cruel and horrible and not very nice. The projectionist is also a bit sort of sleazy and slimy and
predatorial cunt.
Yeah,
like,
he was just trying to fuck her.
Yeah, that's literally all he was doing. And then you've got the is it the sister-in-law? I think that's their
the sister-in-law,
Mitzi, who is also just sort of like a bit of an airhead and like not really there, like part of this other family who sort of look down upon them. And it's just like really difficult for me to sort of like think, right, okay, well, who am I actually going to root for in this film? Who am I sort of hoping? And then your only character sort of constant through there is Pearl, but I find the character of Pearl really unlikable. And they keep putting this sort of like, I think they keep trying to go for like this really sort of heavy southern charm.
Yeah.
And for me, it doesn't work. It doesn't quite, they don't pull it off for me. I think, in the way in the which they were intending. Like, I could be wildly off the bat here, but I feel like they're really starting to push, like, root for Pearl. She's this sort of, like, Southern Belle kind of character, but she's just got, like, a bit of a screw loose. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just, like, completely misreading it.
That
But
is completely not what I got from it. I don't think we're supposed to root for anybody because, this being a prequel and it coming out after X, we know that Pearl is a villain. So I think it's
Yeah.
more sometimes, the devil's in the details. Like, we know that Pearl is bad and we want to watch how this really starts to come to be and where she's really like how unhinged she was, at what point of her life this really came to pass. We know going into this, like if you start at Pearl, you start in the wrong place. You got to watch them in the order that they came out, like X and then Pearl, because yeah, that there's nobody to fucking root for. Like
yeah.
for me, I knew that there wouldn't be, but I did enjoy the performance of Pearl.
But I think the thing is, though, like, we've had so many villains in the past that we do feel sympathetic for, that we do have some sort of, like, ability like, and I feel like they were potentially trying to give us that. They were trying to give us that, like, sort of backstory to Pearl. They were trying to give us, this sort of what she was wanting to do with her life. But I don't think they did it in a way that would allow us to really sort of, or allow me anyway, to really care.
I don't think anybody, I mean, I think you're supposed to, like, have interest in it, but I don't think you're supposed to care. I really don't believe that. It's almost like taking Art the Clown and trying to make him sympathetic. Sorry for mentioning Terrifiers. You knew it was going to happen.
How long to go?
That was 21 and a half minutes, Nico.
There we go.
But I'm saying, like, if we did a movie about Art the Clown's origins, which, we may get in the lore of these Terrifier movies, we've got Terrifier 3 coming. Are we going to get more art lore? Maybe. It's whispered about, but there's no way to make him fucking sympathetic. There's none.
And listen, I'm not sitting here saying that
we're there to watch how gory and how evil and how bad he's going to be, and be entertained by it.
But and you're right. Like, for a character like him, there's absolutely no way. And I'm not sitting here saying that we need to make every single villain, sympathetic and whatever.
Well, Freddy's certainly not sympathetic, but he's my favorite.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, I think they have to be some, like, I don't know, like, because I feel like they have to be kind of, like, likable without you. They can be likable without being sympathetic, if that makes sense. You still, like, it's a horror movie. We still have to like our villains. Like,
I think that people do like Pearl as a villain. I think it depends on who you ask. I think she's a magnanimous, like, villain. Like, she's got all these different emotions, and then she's starting to realize something's wrong with her. Like, she honestly, it's like a look of, like, we're doing some psycho type, psychobabble, little analyze. I can't talk tonight. Today. It's day for me. I should do better. Anyway, some psychobabble analysis of Pearl, but it's like, sorry about that. But I think, like, it's not all villains have to be sympathetic, and I think people kind of enjoy the descent to madness. And if I can bring up, like, our top 5 episode. My voice is going out.
Do you want to drink something and I'll take over for a
minute? I'm sorry. I'm fighting for my life over here.
So the thing about Pearl, right? I was expecting to see how she turned bad.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
And it starts with her being bad. As soon as you see that bit with the goof, I'm on Gandhi's page with that. You realise there's going to be fucking no cunt in this movie that's going to be you're rooting for them. You're just going to see who's the most fucked up and who's, like, fucked her up that way.
And everybody loves, like, villain origin stories, and this is what this is, and it's done in such a beautiful.
But see, this is the thing.
Way,
because we start at a point where she's already. I don't believe that this is an origin story, because
she's already a villain.
She's already a villain. So,
but I think, like, she hasn't reached her final form yet.
No,
so we get through this film.
I agree with that.
She mentions, like, a pure psycho thing, right? So psychos start on small animals, their pets, all that stuff in real life, and she mentions that in this. This starts where she starts killing humans.
But the thing is, as well, like,
and what a great monologue that is.
But 100%. But the thing is, like, there's a scene in this movie where, her mother's talking to her, and her mother's like, we know some of the stuff that you've done, and this is obviously stuff that's happened before this movie takes place. That to
Yeah.
me is the origin story that we should have got. We should have got that origin story here. And, you know, even if it was just a case of,
Mhm.
because this is like, listen, this isn't like a particularly long movie. This comes in, I think, about 96 minutes, I think it comes in at. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're,
Nice tight little.
you know, it's a tight little film. You're not telling me like we couldn't have gotten maybe like 5 to 10 minutes at the start where we'd see like a younger Pearl and maybe start to see where like some of that's coming from, because that to me would have been a much more complete origin story.
I guess I'm
See,
just more
I
like,
preferred not seeing that.
yeah,
I
that's what I
actually
was gonna
did
say.
because I liked the way that the mum's trying to hide it. You know, she's trying to lie to herself about it. I like that about that part. That is one of the bits that I do like about it, because
And I do like,
it's what parents do when they've got a psychopath as a child.
right. And so, she tries to keep her on the farm, but also I think it's good because it shows that she's already married quite young,
Mhm.
Howard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
who we see in X. So it's like, here's early in her marriage, he's off at war, in World War One. And we had no idea that Pearl descended from like this German farming family. So there are neat things, but I think it's like a good point to start where she's at in her life. She's married, her husband's gone. They got married basically and he left to go to war. And she's living on her parents' farm. She wants to get the fuck off there. We're starting to see like the X factor, there's a lot of the X factor is a big thing in all three of the films. Even if you haven't seen Maxxxine, you know that because
Yeah.
of the triple X. But I think that it focused on it in Pearl's way, and she had to be of a certain age to still be trying to get a different life better for
Yeah.
herself. And we're going through like she hasn't gotten to her final form yet, which I think that she does by the end of this film. I
Yeah.
really like the age. I don't know. I don't have any problems with it. I think it's great.
I mean, like, yeah, like I think you're right, and I like the fact that, you know, obviously in that first film, Pearl's not really the focus of the first film. It's Mia Goth as the, you know, whose character name in the first film escapes me. I know she plays Pearl in the first film as well, but
Maxxxine.
oh wait, it's Maxxine. It's literally the title of the third movie.
Maxxxine means
I was thinking that myself. I'm like, is he taking a piss?
Yeah, so obviously, like, the focus of the first film is Maxxine, and like, so that's where that comes from. I do like, listen, again, I'm not sitting here saying that this is a bad film, and I have good things to say about this film, and I will get onto the good things that I have to say about this film. I think for me, it's just like as an overall sort of plot, and as an overall sort of story, I think there are just things missing for me that I would like to have seen, and I struggle to really sort of cling on to anyone in both these films, because I genuinely don't think there's a lot of like there, even like the rest of the gang don't really like any of the characters in the first film either. I think they're all very egotistical, they're all very vain, they're all very selfish, and it's just like, you know, who, like, I feel like if you're going to do a trilogy of films, give me at least like one person to root for throughout the three films. Like, giving me three films of characters, like, and I again can't speak to Maxxine, haven't seen it yet. But give me like one character that I don't fucking hate, because, you know, I don't really want to sit through potentially 5 hours worth of film watching people that I don't like. if that makes sense.
well, I had some likability for some of the characters in X. I can't remember their names right now, so I'm gonna go by their actors. I thought Brittany Snow was fantastic.
Yep.
Kid Cudi was great. He was
Yeah.
likable because he was out there, helping Howard. Like, oh yeah,
With
well,
that
I was
massive
conservative
fake
and
dog.
that huge dick. Yeah. Where I was like, oh Lord, but
Do you know
yeah,
that wasn't a prosthetic? Yeah.
I think
yeah, I
I'm
knew it was
joking. I'm
prosthetic.
joking. I'm
I
joking.
think
I was like,
There's
it's
no
not a
fucking way.
prosthetic.
I think the thing
If I saw that shit, I would run. Like, no, no.
Here's dinner. Flop. Right.
Nico, you'd never know what that's like.
I'm just saying the lie that all women want a giant dick. It's a lie. It sounds terrible, personally.
Six is plenty. Thank you very much.
Yep, we will accept that. Just know what you're doing, man. Good foreplay in there, and then don't worry about the stuff that you're doing.
I think for me though, like with that first film as well, like it's not, it's actors that I like. You know, Brittany Snow is really good in it. Like I say, Kid Cudi's good in it. You've got Jenna Ortega in there, who for me is the actual darling of horror right now, not Mia Goth.
To me, it's both of them.
I just
I'm on the Ortega side. Like,
Thank you. I think she's
I
like
love Mia Goth. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine.
I no, it's not. I don't like her. It's just if you got to pick out the two, yeah.
But if I had to pick out two, I'd still pick Mia Goth.
Well, there you go.
So you prefer
There's my
her, not
hot
both.
take.
Then. So you prefer her, not both. Haha.
Well, I mean, you made me put a gun to my head there. I'm gonna pick Mia Goth. But I try to stick with I do like them both on genuinely, honestly.
See, this film, I would have liked to have seen more of her and her husband becoming killers together.
Yeah.
That's what I would have liked to have seen.
That's
And you
like,
don't get that.
that's another area of this film where I feel like there was a little bit of an opportunity missed. I understand plot wise, like I think it was clever, like she kind of resents Howard for going away, leaving her.
Yeah.
She had fallen pregnant and she had lost the baby. You know, like we get
She
all
was
of
glad.
we get all of that, and she was glad. And
Yeah.
you know, throughout this film, you know, Pearl is just constantly being like to pretty much everyone in this film, I wish you were dead, I wish you were dead, I wish you were
Yeah.
dead. You know, whether that's her own parents, whether that's her sister-in-law, you know, and then eventually, you know, the projectionist as well. And, you know, I'm gonna get onto some more technical stuff of the film because I think like there's really good aspects of this, like cinematography wise and stuff like that. I think like is really, really good. But yeah, like it just I don't know, like there's just I also kind of have that you know, like just can't quite put your finger on it feeling as well. You know, sometimes when like you look at something and you're just like, I don't like this or I do like this, but there's aspects of it like how you can't. And this may be a bit shit for a podcast analyzing a movie, but there's aspects where you're just like, I can't quite put my finger on why I just don't like this.
For me, I think this is the middle part of the story that I wanted. You know what I mean? I wanted a bit more of her turning. I wanted to see her and him get together as killers together. And you don't get either of that. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
think, but what I
it feels
do,
like it's not started in the right place, it's not finished in the right place for me.
however, having said that, and I agree with you, Nico, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. Potentially would have liked to maybe seen a little bit more of that in X rather than here
Yeah.
in Pearl, because I really love that. I do really love that end scene.
that's where I was gonna go. Like
Yeah.
with that monologue that she gives Mitzi, if Howard was there, like we wouldn't have gotten that.
Yeah.
Also, you know, that ending that we love, like when she's, I mean, everybody loves that fucking over the credits smile. Like, I'm so happy you're home, and she smiles. And what happened was Ty West hadn't told her to stop, so she kept doing it, and that's why the tears are coming down because it hurt her face. And then she just kept going till he said cut. I love that. I mean, people fucking love that ending, and I love it. I watch the whole thing every time I watch the movie. But I think with when we bring Howard into it, I think we kind of are having watched X, we know what's going to happen. We know that Howard's just going to be like, okay, so you're a murderer. I love you and shit. So I guess we're doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So apparently we know that's what happened. So we don't really need that. I don't think it's necessary.
don't
I
think-
think
See, I would have liked to have seen him come to terms with that.
No, this is what I'm saying. But this is
properly.
where I'm saying. This is why I'm saying I maybe would have preferred to have seen that in X and not here in Pearl.
Right.
Because I think for the purposes of this movie, whilst I would like to have seen it in a whole, I don't think we necessarily needed it in here. And this is where I'm saying, rather than that, I would have probably preferred to have like a couple of scenes of an even younger Pearl, just to give it that more rounded feel. Especially if we had in X gotten, you know, a scene or two of Howard coming to terms with it, because Howard's in that movie plenty. Like there's plenty of opportunity there. And again, X is not a particularly, it's quite a tight movie, you know. So like there's opportunity. I just think there's opportunities to give us like a little bit more without really taking away, and if anything just like sort of adding to the experience. I just think there's holes in both films that
The thing is, in X though, right? You already know that they've killed folk previously. You know what I mean? You already
Yeah.
know that.
yeah, we do.
So
And
I
then
would
you
have
say,
liked
like-
to have seen him
I'm sorry.
properly be like, "What the fuck? I've married a psycho," and then him slowly fucking come to terms with it, or like instantaneously come to terms with it because he is as well. That's what I would have liked to have seen. You know, I would
feel
like to have seen
with the
one of
with
those
the case
things.
of Howard, it would have been a much slower progression. He just kind of is letting her take the reins
Yeah.
and trying to be protective of her, as we see in X. I mean, there's just a lot that I could fill in having seen both films. like the things that I picked up on in X, I didn't necessarily need in Pearl because I already knew them. And then these little things in X and in Pearl, like in Pearl, I think there's a lot of things that you can lose in the details that if you don't pay attention, you don't realize like there's a lot of connections, there's a lot of references. And some of them are to the point where like, when I rewatched this just the other day, I was like, fuck, I missed that. A lot of it came, and it's not right in your face. It's something you kind of have to figure out for yourself. And after like your first watch, you watch it again, and you're like, oh shit, I picked up on more things. I do like that about this, and I still like it's what they call a slice of life in writing. So Pearl is just a little slice of life. Like this one particular time period that's usually something major happens. And so I just felt like X did. I'm not X, but god damn it, we keep talking about and trying not to say
Pearl.
Maxxxine. So Pearl, god, I am stupid today. So Pearl, I just think like does exactly what it needs to do. I didn't have any questions, I didn't have any problems. It kind of skipped straight ahead to what I wanted to see, and it did it in like the technicalities of this movie, like Ian was saying, like they're just so beautiful, fantastic. The color, the music, the orchestra, that soundtrack that we get to this score, everything is so fantastic. And then we do get the gore. It's pretty fucking good gore.
Yeah,
I
and
just
I want to go in there because like I've been kind of bashing on this film now for like half an hour. I do want to say like I think the cinematography for this film is really really great. Like you say, that really bright vibrant colors, and it is such a contrast to X as well, because X is that much more sort of gritty palette, dark.
Yeah.
It's much more sort of 70s based. Like you could, it gives you kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes with that sort of palette that it's got going on. Whereas here, everything's much more sort of, obviously it's set in 1918s, but it feels much more like sort of the roaring 20s, where like the colors are just like bright and in your face, and and it's great. And like like I say, the cinematography, some of the shots are really good. We've got a great score in here, and listen, we've got great performances in here as well. Mia Goth delivers what I think is a far superior performance in this movie than she does in X.
I agree.
She's great in X as Maxine. I think she's great in X as Pearl, but I think she's constricted in X as Pearl, whereas here she gets to sort of spread those wings a little bit, and really sort of get into the character. I think she gives a great performance here, and had she sort of became this sort of horror darling off the back of Pearl and not off the back of X, I'd have probably been a lot more willing to accept it.
I love what Mia Goth does fantastically well is like I love when she in any movie that she's done, including like Infinity Pool and stuff like that. When she gets mad, she's that screaming that she does. Like, god damn,
Yeah.
that's a fucking scream queen right there. Like she's like when she gets mad, like I'm a star, like she's just screaming. I'm like, yeah, this bitch is crazy.
I
But
think
I
I
love
think
like
as well, like we briefly talked about it in our top 5 episode that we did last week. She probably is she probably has a little bit of that in her as well, with like
yeah.
in real life, she is married to Shia LaBeouf, and
Oh,
he has his issues, shall we say. Try,
yeah.
and there's
Just a
probably
little bit.
and there have been, rumblings and stories about Mia Goth on set, like in
Right.
not potentially being the easiest person to work with. And I feel like I'm probably putting that a little bit mildly as well. So I think, there is that as well. Just to sort of bear in mind, like she's the possibly like a little bit. I don't want to say unhinged, because I think that's probably being a bit too far and a bit unfair, but I think she's got that side to her.
Well, and the interesting thing is like if she were using her regular speaking voice, she has this very, very upper crust, proper British accent,
Mm-hmm.
very high pitched, girly kind of voice. And then in America, people were shocked,
Yeah.
like in recent times, that she's British. They're like, what? How is she British? It's like because she has the accent down really well in these films, and that's kind of what she's known for right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think she nails it, but I think she may have some wildness in her as as a person. Yeah, to get with Shia LaBeouf, and this is after all the allegations. I'm like, girl, okay, not my business, I guess. But yeah, there was an extra on this on Maxxine that was trying to sue her
Yeah.
because they got kicked in the head.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know too much about the ins and outs of that particular incident, so I'm not going to sit here and say,
It's just one news
yeah.
article I read a little bit ago.
But you know, like, and listen, there's a lot of actors out there who have been difficult to work with, and there's been like incidents
Alex
happening.
Baldwin.
So yeah, exactly. So I'm not gonna sit here and like absolutely. I'm not gonna sit here and like absolutely, you know, condemn her for things that may have happened. I don't know the ins and outs of it, so you know I can't comment too much about it. But I think it's something that's maybe just worth bringing up as well. But I think that maybe then that does sort of speak to her, like that definitely I think lends to having maybe that slightly sort of wild side, shall we say, definitely lends to this role as well, because she needs to be able to, because especially I think in this movie rather than in X, she turns it on and off so quickly. You know, she goes from that sort of sweet southern, like, you know, I want to be a dancer, I want to be a star, to I'm gonna stick a fucking pitchfork in your mouth and you're gonna like it sort of attitude really fucking quickly. And it is quite impressive to watch her go in and out of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. She just kind of snaps in, snaps out. I mean, very typical psychopath behavior. Like
Yeah.
she has no regulation of emotions. And, you know, I mean, I think it's an interesting, like, this is much more of a psychological horror, whereas X was much more of a slasher. I
Yeah.
mean, we get a lot of tone shifts in this series, I think, you know, this was a huge tone shift from X, but I think this was just like as an actress, she's spreading her wings and getting to do more fun shit. And you know, she really fucking sells it. I love when she's doing the uh the dance to try out for the troop, and she's so sure she's gonna make it. She's already done all these like atrocities
Uh,
at home and all this shit. She's like, I gotta be out of here. I can't live my life like this. And she dances, and she know this. You get this whole imaginary scene, like how it would be at that time in silent pictures, the way they dance and move, and then they're just like next, and she's like, nah, like it fucking flips out. Like I enjoy that because what a performance.
See, yeah, I do like the bit where it's like where she's performing and all that, but I'm not gonna lie, like when you see her in Infinity Pool, that's the one that she's the best in, I'd say.
She's really good in Infinity Pool. I really like Infinity Pool though.
Yeah, same. Uh, it's like this is honestly probably their second best performance that I've seen, but I still do prefer X just because all the stuff in here, it's like the interactions with the guy that shows her the smut film and all that, the Stag movie and all that. The interactions with him, she's almost like childlike, and then the next minute she's dancing with the like
The Scarecrow.
the
Oh God, that
scarecrow, and
scene
it's
was.
just it's
I
just
sat down with my
that's
kids and watched that, and you know they're older. You know, like grown, and
yeah
my youngest is 17. So it's like, all right, we're all pretty much adults here. But yeah, I was really like, what the fuck?
yeah.
I've
What
also
are
It's
you
like
doing?
just I've also
it's
just
mental how she dances with it and then just starts riding it, and you're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
oh I was so like, what the hell is going on here?
Cringe, is it?
I was like, since when do they build scarecrows with like strap-ons? Like, you know, like is
Oh,
that?
she's just grinding the
Yeah, I
hardest
was
I
gonna say she's
know,
shit.
just
I
grinding it
know,
on there.
I know, but like, you know, maybe she stuck one on herself. I don't. No, maybe she like,
No, she'd have bent it over if she was doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I almost said something, but I'm gonna keep quiet. I'm just saying, like, it's a possible thing to do, but it's really fucking crazy. When she does it, like, oh, this random scarecrow that looked a little too human-like for my taste.
I genuinely
It was
I know at one
off-putting.
point she looks at it and she can see a face on it, but I genuinely thought it was gonna like come to life at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it had like
Yeah,
this almost. It was very humanoid. Whereas most scarecrows, you don't really fuck with that too much. You know, like put
Yeah.
some buttons on it or some shit, but it was
I
like
I was expecting
fully
it to move.
formed.
I genuinely was expecting it to move. Yeah, I absolutely with you.
Yeah.
I so totally thought it was gonna move.
I'm like, this has got to be a dude in a suit. You know what I mean? But no, it wasn't.
I've also just sort of remembered why Candy probably loves Mia Goth so much, because she's in 2018 Suspiria, and I always
I was
forget that
gonna
she's in
say,
that.
she's one of my favorite scream queens. She's in, well, I don't know if people don't know how I feel about that Suspiria 2018. They might have been sleeping. Um, I make no bones about that. But yeah, I think she's phenomenal in it, and it's one of the few things as most people realize like she doesn't get to use her on natural voice. So
Yeah.
in Suspiria 2018, she's got that high pitched British voice, and I'm like, yeah, I like that.
There is also an upcoming Frankenstein movie, which is going to be directed by Guillermo del Toro, in which Mia Goth is going to play the bride.
I can get
Um,
behind that.
there's no release date for this yet, but it's obviously in production, and it's got a pretty impressive cast already. So there's Mia Goth in there, Oscar Isaac's in there, Charles Dance, Christoph Waltz is in there, Lars Mikkelsen. So it's got a pretty impressive cast. Obviously, Del Toro's directing it as well. So we can all sort
Yeah,
of
Guillermo del Toro, like he is like a phenomenal director, so I trust him.
yeah.
I really
So
do.
Oscar Isaac is going to play Victor Frankenstein.
I love Oscar Isaac.
So that like it's a really good, really good cast.
So who's going to be the monster?
The monster is going to be played by an actor called Jacob Elordi.
Oh, he's the guy that was in Saltburn, and all the girls
Yeah.
are going crazy about him right now.
Yeah. So
Big tall guy
I
though.
don't think he's got any horror credits to his name, at least not any that I'm aware of. He probably does back in some smaller things back in his career, but yeah, I think that's where most people will know him from now is Saltburn. So yeah, so it's got like a really impressive cast, and and listen, I think the bride is going to be a great role for her because
I think so.
because it's almost like an extension of Pearl as well, because she's this sort of stay-at-home wife for Howard, when he's off fighting in the war, and she's left at home with her parents to take care of her family, and you know, obviously the plan was to raise a child, which she didn't end up getting to do. So I think that's almost kind of like an extension to a character. It's maybe a bit of a reach, but I think you can see similarities there.
I think that's a major reach, but anyway.
You think that's I don't think it's that big a reach.
I think honestly, like just the way that the things that she could do with her voice, which is extremely like that takes a lot of talent. Like she can go from proper high pitched British girl to Texas Southern Belle to she can do all of these fucking things. So and plus she's got a very iconic scream. And when you think of Bride of Frankenstein, you think of that moment that everybody gets where it's Elsa Lanchester to the side screaming, that fucking scream. So I mean, I think just on that alone, yeah, let's cast me and Goth. But also, she's got the acting chops to do something really amazing there.
Yeah.
I just remember the interview where the guy literally does say to her when she's using her normal accent, "Is that your real accent?" He thinks she's put it on for a movie, and it's just absolutely hysterical, you know.
It's like, I think it was it Christian Bale on American Psycho, because obviously Christian Bale is Welsh, and
Yeah.
when it wasn't until the after party that he came out of his Patrick Bateman voice character, and everyone was stunned that he had this sort of Welsh accent as well. So like,
So I get a question, just not being knowing a whole lot about the UK. What I know, I'm learning from you guys. What's the difference? Welsh, is that like a certain? It's like
yeah.
from
So
Wales,
so the UK is made up of Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So Wales is a country, is a separate country. So it's the third biggest country, and so it's the next one down from Scotland. It's I don't know, Nico. Do you have any other? It's other explanation for Wales? I've never been to Wales.
They're very famous for singing, like a lot of
They can sing.
big singers.
Well,
They-
isn't like Tom Jones from Wales?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What's New Pussycat and shit? All right.
Yeah. So
So you know the way he talked before he sounded American, that's a proper Welsh accent.
yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot in common with the Welsh.
No, I didn't know the difference. I thought, because isn't it like what is it? Williams, like Prince of Wales?
Yeah, the Prince of
Oh,
Wales.
okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm
so
just
the
trying to understand.
monarchy
Just an American struggling over here. Sorry.
so the monarchy is like the monarchy of the whole of the British Isles. So they've all got titles linked to every part of the British Isles. So they're technically the king and queen of England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. They're
Nico,
technically the monarch of all of them.
King of Ireland, you're gonna start a war, Nico.
I know, I really did. So yeah, they're the monarch of all of that. Hence, the future king is always known as the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Thank
okay.
you for clearing that up. I'm so sorry about that.
Every day is a
That's fine.
every day
I'm
is
It's
a,
learning things from you guys. I
every
appreciate
day is
that.
a school day.
it's to do with the joining the union. So
Yeah.
because they're separate countries and it's a union, but basically the English tried to take over Scotland for long enough. They gave up and then just they formed a union. It's the easy way of putting
Okay.
it. And that union, certain rules were in it, and one of the rules was the future ruler is the Prince of the whole of Wales.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember when Charles was Prince of Wales. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like the Scottish part of it was you always had to be coronation on the Stone of Destiny, which was the all the Scottish monarchs. The English part is the scepter. The Welsh part is the future king came from there. The Northern Irish part, I can't remember what that was. That was like that was to do with when it was the whole of Ireland and it was like they weren't part of the union. So they like had that deal with them where it was something to do with that. I can't remember if it was it a sword or something, I can't mind. It's been that long since I've done it at school, I can't remember, put it that way. But
I'm
yeah,
just
that's basically
You
it.
guys make America sound boring.
I'm just letting you talk this episode into a 2 hour episode, Nico. It's fine.
No, I
Sorry.
apologize. I asked the question because sometimes you guys talk about stuff and I'm like, I don't
It was,
necessarily
no, I was
know
like,
what that
Nico, you give like a
means.
perfectly good explanation in like the first 20 seconds and then just carried on to give us more and more information.
But
I
I
was
appreciate
trying
the
to say
knowledge.
what each
Thank
bit
you.
was, you know.
You
I
got
was like,
anything else? Got anything else to add, Nico?
fuck the monarchy.
Yeah, fuck the monarchy.
Yes, I'm with you. I mean, but I
Anyways,
guess my people said that a long time ago.
yeah. Anyways,
What's the only thing?
what's
That's why Britain is united the whole of the world because we give you Independence Day to everyone.
I don't want to be included in this we when we're talking about Britain. Thank you very much.
No, but that's the joke. What's the only day that Britain will never celebrate? Independence Day because they gave it to everybody else.
I mean, we may celebrate that at some point, Nico. You never know.
I really wish we
Here's
will.
hoping.
Fingers crossed. Anyways, dragging us back to the movie, Nico.
Yeah, sorry.
I did do a poll on Twitter, asking people which of X and Pearl they preferred, to see if there was like a clear winner. And I was expecting in my head, just possibly off of my own preference, I was kind of expecting Pearl X, sorry, to just like run away with it because I remember when we did the
Oh,
when we did the awards, for 2022. Pearl didn't get anywhere near the level of love that X got. Like X swept away with everything, and
They did.
Pearl got like a few mentions, but like it really didn't
but
get.
I think that's because Pearl came out later and it was too close to the voting.
But then a lot of these things like recency, like memory, like really plays into effect as well. Sometimes the things that come out the most recent are the things that are the most popular because people remember
Yeah.
them the more vividly. So I think it's about 50-50. Anyways, we
Oh
got a
no,
good-
I just think because X was on video at that point, more people would have seen it. Do you know what I mean?
I don't remember Pearl getting a theater run over here.
It did.
It did. It got one. And I don't know
It
about you
did.
guys, but we got one here.
It must have been like a
Yeah.
limited one here. It can't have been like big here. I just
No,
don't
Because I
remember
know it was in theaters. Because
I
yeah,
know,
we
I know it was. I know it was. I definitely know it was in theaters. Obviously, over in the States. I don't. I obviously you saw it in the cinema, Nico. So obviously it did get a theater
Aye.
one here. I just don't remember it getting like a particularly big. It must have been a small one.
I saw it in the View as well. Maxxine's
Yeah.
not even in the View. I'm like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
yeah. Like Maxxxine is only in certain cinemas here. Like we're not even getting it in all
Yeah,
of our
that's so
cinemas.
strange. Yeah.
It's in for View Cinemas. It is in other sites, and just not in Aberdeen. So.
That's strange, yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, we got a good number of votes. X did win the poll, by the way. It got 62% of the votes, with Pearl only getting
Oh, I thought it'd be closer.
38% of the vote. So it kind of went the way I was expecting with that, but just thought I'd throw that out there as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of done with all my points about Pearl. I've said my positives. I've said the things that I need to think. But if you two have anything else that you'd like to add about this movie, the floor is yours, guys.
Well, no, I've said everything. There's not a lot of trivia or fuck all I know about it, so yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting that they kind of filmed these pretty much concurrently with X and Pearl. That's why they were able to come out so close together. So I think that would have been a neat experience, and I think the films are better for it, both films, X and Pearl. with them being filmed kind of concurrently, or pretty close. Like I think they did one then the other, or worked on them a little bit at the same time. So I think you can
There
see
was an overlap at the end, yeah.
yeah, you can see that they went from right from one to the other. And I just really like seeing, like the juxtaposition of like X with Pearl, like when you watch them in order, it's like really awesome. I love the experience. I think Pearl enriches it. Is it a story we need? This is something I was seeing a little bit of. It was Pearl a story we needed? Well, I didn't care. I mean, I liked it. It doesn't matter if I needed it or not. Once I watched it, I needed it. I loved it. So I feel like, maybe I'm the only one really championing this film, but like I love it. It's just everything about it is so fantastic. We get to focus more on we get a lot of character, kind of sketches of Pearl. Like we see that she wants, this sort of romanticized life, but also she has no empathy, like dead in the eyes sometimes. Like, and Mia Goth fucking kills that. Like this just goes dead in the eyes.
Yeah, she does
Like
have
when
a
she's gonna put
she has a great 1,000 yard stare. I'll give her that. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And it's so important that she has that because she's also very vibrant at times. And so it's like these weird moods, like just like when the nameless they don't name him in the film, the nameless projectionist comes, takes her back home, and all she'd just done all that crazy stuff at home, like killed her parents and shit. Um
Uh,
but he comes with her and she's just like starting to realize she's getting the brush, and she's like, what's the matter, what'd you see?
yeah.
Like I love that. And he's
uh,
just like, you're scaring me, Pearl. I love that because she's getting more and more frantic and manic. And I just like the buildup of the emotions and then the complete drop off. And like I said, that monologue is a really long monologue. It's fantastically delivered, and it really is the crux of the film. So I just like, I like it for what it is, but I like some weird shit sometimes. It's very much more of a think piece. It's much more of like um not a lot of action, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of, just picking up on some different like minor behaviors. It's not in your face. What's in your face is the score and the coloring and all of that, and that works for me. So it's a talky movie. Yeah, I like that. Keep
Would
talking.
so
would you have
you said about projectionist. I like that scene because it shows he's got more range as well. Because the build up of the fear in him is brilliant.
Yeah, it's
He's like,
just
oh,
little by
nothing's
little.
wrong, nothing's wrong, and you see it build and build, and the whole time there's fear in his eyes, and I really like that scene. That's a really good scene,
And
but
he's
it's
trying to
him that
play it
makes
off
that
and get away from
good.
her.
You know what I mean? It's him that does that good, not her. That's about one of the only scenes I would say that she's all right at it, but she could have done better with that one, I think.
would you have preferred, given that obviously X and Pearl came out so close together, which is so unusual for any franchise, not just in horror movies, for one movie to come out pretty much exactly straight after the next? Would you have preferred Maxxxine to have been released closer? Would that have made it like a better experience? Obviously, I haven't seen it.
I'm trying to do that without spoilers.
Yeah, same.
Hard to
Yeah,
do without spoilers.
I
I
think
think
they've released it
okay.
at the right time. Put it that way.
I'm gonna
Okay.
say I'm gonna agree with Nico on that. I
Okay.
think that it all happened as it should.
I won't probe any further, just to
Uh,
spare you guys from having
because
to
I don't
The
want to
banter.
spoil
regular
it for you.
idea, yes, I
Uh,
think they came out when they should,
okay.
and in the
Yeah.
order.
With that being said, anyone have anything else they would like to bring up before we move on?
Mm-mm.
Perfect. Right, let's move on to our next segment, and we'll talk about some trivia. I don't have a huge amount of trivia for this movie. Nico, you've said you've got anything, so Candy, if you do have anything, feel free to jump in at any point, because I don't have a lot. This movie had a budget of approximately $8 million, gross worldwide at the box office $10.1 million, so it didn't really make money. I think this is probably worth remembering, though, that these films were filmed and created during COVID times.
Yes.
And the majority of the money that both X and Pearl will have made will have been from streaming services and not from theatre runs, so it's probably worth bearing that in mind as well. I think maybe that also did maybe come into play as well, because these came out right as COVID, the restrictions were being lifted, and
Yes.
everyone was just crying out for like new
Well,
creative
and they
stuff.
touch on it in Pearl with everybody wearing the mask because of Spanish
Spanish
influenza,
flu, yeah.
big epidemic at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a neat
Spanish
touch.
flu, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So Ty
It was
West.
a nice touch, that.
Yeah. So obviously Mia Goth is a producing and writing credit for this movie as well, which is worth pointing out. Herself and Ty West collaborated on the script via FaceTime during a mandatory 2-week quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic in New Zealand prior to filming X. At that point, they'd only hoped that A24 would agree to make the film, but the project was greenlit before filming even began on X as well. We didn't really talk about the fact that this is an A24 joint, because A24 is a very, I think, a very loved sort of within the horror community, but it is polarizing.
It can be polarizing, but for the most part, a lot of people really love A24 because I think it came through as a big champion in saving horror with some other things. I mean, bringing us back to a golden age of horror. I think A24 is right in there.
Yeah,
and it's so important.
100%. And I think, it offers a proper alternative. Like, we talk and we kind of shit on Blumhouse, for example, like quite a lot.
I do.
Because, their horror movies are very paint by numbers. There's a place for Blumhouse, though, and I think Blumhouse always produces like really good entry-level horrors for people who maybe aren't like huge horror fans.
Casual fans.
And casual fans, I think that's where they're at. And there's a place for that, whereas I think...
And they deserve to be out there, absolutely.
And I'm not saying those people can't go and like enjoy A24 films, but I feel like A24 are making films more for the hardcore fan.
Yes. I do have a bit of trivia.
Yeah, go for
her
it.
alligator that's named Theta. When she's at the theater, now I knew this anyway. I was thinking she named him after Theta Bara. Theta Bara was when she's at the theater, it says it's her and Cleopatra, which was Theta Bara's most famous role. And before censorship got really heavy, which is in the 30s of cinema, they could do anything they wanted basically. So she was nude in a lot of that movie. She was considered the first sexy woman.
Mhm.
And if you saw her, you'd be like, her? Okay. It was a different time, but but Theta Bara, like, I just think it's interesting because she's named after, she names all of her animals after her favorite actors, and then but she names the alligator Theta, who's considered like the vamp a man eater. So I don't know, fun fact from Candy.
Yeah, I think it's also worth pointing out that snuff film that the projectionist shows her is a real snuff film. It's not a snuff film.
What? Stag film. I missed that part.
Stag film.
That's a real one.
Very different things.
So do you know how I know that's a real one?
That stag film is a real one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know it's a real one because it's got scenes from museum in Prague. And that's one of the stag films.
Yeah.
That they've got a scene from. Because you know the bit where she's jumping over her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's in the Prague one.
Yeah. Anyways, just thought I'd point that out as well, because I didn't actually have that written down.
Also, the connecting thing is always kind of porn or adult entertainment.
Yeah. That's the sort of the running theme, isn't it, throughout the movie? Even though it's like a very minimalistic part of this movie, it's obviously a very heavy part of the first movie. I'm going to base the fact that it's Maxxxine with 3 X's in the third one, and it's a very heavy part of the third movie. And I think it's also like it's also like a metaphor for like young women who are trying to break into like the entertainment industry, and unfortunately for a lot of them, they end up doing adult films and porn. Like it's what happens,
It's fast money, it's a job, and so you can be legit, what I mean?
So definitely worth bringing up. This movie was originally meant to be filmed in black and white, but A24 were against that, and I think they made the right call.
Absolutely.
So
it would have stolen a lot from this film.
So it was made in extremely vivid color. Mia Goth claims another reason for the switch from black and white to bright colors was that the team felt like films being made in that way had become its own thing, and she and Ty West wanted to do something different and unique. So I think they all made the right call in making this like a really bright, really vivid sort of like treat for the eyes. Pearl's iconic smile, which we've like alluded to, that big sort of final scene with the end credits, it lasts for 1 minute and 51 seconds. So,
her face started to hurt, crying.
She actually has tears coming down her face, because, and apparently, like you were saying earlier, Candy, it wasn't meant to be like that. And I think if you watch closely, she you can see her like shaking her head to like the cut behind the camera, waiting for Ty West to yell cut, and he just doesn't. And so you can see that as well.
Sorry for her suffering, but it really makes that. It really fucking stands out.
When we're talking about actors suffering, we often talk
not the worst one.
We often talk about people like Stanley Kubrick, and I think
right.
Mia Goth got off got off just fine in this one. He made her smile for less than 2 minutes. I think she's fine.
But I think it really works. And I think that Ty West was watching and going, yeah, this fucking works.
Yeah,
You know
100%.
what I mean? And I'm sure she
He
agrees
probably-
with it now.
He probably was watching that going, fuck, this is working too well. And then it builds as well, because
Yeah.
the tears start coming. He's like, I'm Nick the Yellow
And the
Cut
smile
yet.
starts to falter and then it comes back.
And then he's like, nah, I'm Nick the Yellow Cut yet. Nah, this is working too well.
So that, and also on the back of that, the climactic sort of monologue that Pearl does, which really is, like you said earlier, the centerpiece of this movie. You know, it's not the kills, it's not the action, it's this one monologue we get. That goes on for 7 minutes and 57 seconds. It consists of 17 shots. The final shot goes on for 5 minutes and 36 seconds. So, like, as monologues go, that's like a huge length of time. That's almost a tenth of this movie. Is just that one monologue, you know. So that I think that's like super impressive as well.
Yeah,
I like that bit where she closes her eyes and centers herself on screen. You see her do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just before she says it,
envision that my husband's you, and I'm going to be really honest, you know.
Yeah.
And with her, you know, having a bit of a break with reality, I don't like reality. I think it's a little easier for her to do something like that.
And what I love as well is we never ever cut to Mitzi. She's still there in the room, but we never cut to her. We never get to see what her reaction is. We can
not till the end.
We can picture her reaction, like what she might be reacting in her head, but we never get to see it. And I think that's a really smart choice as well.
And knowing she has to be getting terrified.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, how do you politely get the fuck out of here?
And she does, you know, and I think she like was relatively polite when she tried to get the fuck out of there, but obviously didn't end particularly well for her.
Nope.
Like that arc scene is hysterical. How much time she get hit before she goes down?
You know what I mean? I think it was just twice, wasn't it?
I love that chase though, where she's running, screaming, and then Pearl's just kind of the way that she runs with that axe is very purposeful. Like the stride in it is just kind of like that bitch is about to Lizzie Borden you.
Yeah,
like fucking crazy on you.
I mean, in this film, what's the body count in this film? Like for humans anyway, 4. You've got the mother, the father, the projectionist, Mitzi. Is that it?
Right.
I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Mother on fire in the basement, dad to choke. What's that again? Fucking 4. Yeah.
4. Yeah. So like, you know, and
relatively low, but I mean, I think all the kills count and they work for something. I mean, she kills Mitzi, and then we get to see this dismemberment scene and kind of like this side by side shot that was really cool. Her doing this dismembering and then also feeding the parts to Theta, the alligator. So.
But I do find it funny she does the standard fall and trip whilst being chased.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's over for you.
Yeah.
Never do that.
You women just can't stay on your feet during a horror film.
I'm literally watching the bit where she's getting hit with the axe now, so that's the 4th one.
No,
and
I laughed. I thought it was funny.
4.
I did as well. Movies. I think it's hilarious. I'm like, okay, she's going down.
Okay, right. That is all I've got for trivia. Thank you for your guys' input there with the trivia as well. With that being said, we'll move on to our final segment, and we'll do the ratings and the reviews. This is the exciting bit. As always, we'll start off with the critic scores. IMDb has this movie rated at a 7 out of 10. Metacritic has this at a 7.6 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, critics and audience. We'll start off with the critics. Nico, you can go first for this one. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes critics scored Pearl?
I'm confused because you said 7s for stuff, and I thought it was like 90s for the critics.
You remember, that was IMDb and Metacritic. Remember, like, the scoring for them is never... The majority of films on IMDb gets between a 6.5 and a 7.5. It takes
and that's on a good end.
Yeah.
So I remember them saying it was really high because it was like high 90s. I reckon it's come down since then. I'll go with my lucky number at the end. I'll go 92 because 2 is my lucky number.
Okay. Candy, what do you think the critics scored this?
I'll go a little lower with like 89.
You're not far, Candy, but Nico's lucky number has come up trumps because it's 92%.
Oh, wow.
Fuck off.
God, how many weeks in a row are you going to do this?
That's a few. I think he's looking. I think he looks these
I
up.
always pick 2. If you look at it, I always put 2 at the end when I'm stuck.
I think he's cheating. Anyways, the critics' consensus:
Fuck you!
Pearl finds Ty West squeezing fresh gore out of the world he created with X, and once again benefiting from a brilliant Mia Goth performance. So, we'll move on to the audience. Candy, you can go first with this one. What do you think the audience scored this?
I'm gonna say like 71.
71. Nico?
I want to go 72 just for shits and giggles, to be honest.
Gonna do the prices right on me.
No, it's just because of my lucky number again. I genuinely don't
My
know.
lucky number is 6, and it just didn't feel correct here.
I was gonna go 70 something, and I'm trying to think, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, 72.
72. Well, you're not spot on this time, Nico, but going one up was the right choice.
Was it?
The Rotten Tomatoes audience
Damn it.
the Rotten Tomatoes audience have this at 83%. So
Okay.
a very high score
I didn't
there.
think it was that high.
A very high score there as well. Audience consensus is Pearl's slightly bumpy plot is no match for the amazing Mia Goth, whose terrific performance takes Ty West's eerie atmosphere over the top. So, high scores there all around. As always, we throw it out to our followers and our listeners and ask for some of their scores. We have a few of them to read out. I'm not sure if you've got ones to read out as well, Candy. I forgot to actually ask you before we came on air. But I'll go through
I actually only have one.
Okay, well, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah. On Instagram, I usually get these in reply to stories, so it's just a number. So out of 10, at Ordinary Things Band, who always replies, thank you guys, they gave it an 8.
Okay. An 8 out of 10. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 5 to read out here, and they're quite a mix, to be fair. We'll start off with the long one, and I'm gonna give you one guess at who gave us the long one.
Ren.
It was Ren, yeah. So let's start off with Ren's review. As always, he tries to make me just read out as much as possible.
But they're really good.
They're always really good. No, I do say it in jest because we love Ren's reviews. He always gives really good reviews.
They're fantastic.
So let's just quickly
the longer the better.
Go through that. So Ren says Ty West leaning into The Wizard of Oz as inspiration was certainly a choice, but one that pays off. The choice to go Technicolor and lean into the old-timey way of shooting helps this film stand out from being just a simple supplemental film to X. While I prefer the 70s slasher homage that is X, Mia Goth's performance in Pearl is 10 times better. The in-and-out descent into madness is something. That one-take dialogue scene and the literally painful long take smile is something to behold. Any faults with the plot is dismissed because she carries the film so well, due to this being supplemental and very much a prequel that needs to be watched after the first movie. I give this a 7 out of 10. Still a great must-watch flick. So, I think Ren there alluding to the fact that there are some issues in this film, maybe more plot-wise. And I think that's where I was kind of trying to get at with, why I don't like this as good a film as X. I don't think it's as strong a plot. But obviously, there's still all those pluses in there. Stu World Order, who give us comments and ratings all the time. So again, thank you very much to them. 1.5 out of 10.
No.
It feels like it is about 10 hours long, and it's completely irrelevant. Nothing changes for her character from the beginning of the movie until the end. Worst movie I saw in 2023. It's so laborious and boring.
Not the first person I've heard say that.
Not the first person I've heard.
This is the first time I've heard anything like that. Good Lord.
No, there's a few folks said the exact pretty much word for word. It's quite disturbing.
I have never heard that take before, and I guess I'm just surrounded by people who love this movie, but I've never heard it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Elrose on Twitter gives it a 9 out of 10. I saw this movie without knowing that it was a prequel and before I had seen X, so that probably influenced my experience. I would say if she's given it a 9 out of 10, then actually, she's kind of lucky that it's maybe a 9 out of 10, because I think this movie does work better watching it second.
Yes.
But I love this movie so much, it's like a Technicolor nightmare that someone had in 1918 after they passed out in the Texas summer. So a 9 out of 10 there. Indie Emmy gives it a 7 out of 10, a Technicolor kaleidoscope of a film. And finally, our friend Newman over at the Movies for Days podcast, 8 out of 10. Gorgeous cinematography, an arresting pace, an unsettling and isolated setting, and a powerhouse performance from Mia Goth, a fantastic companion piece to X while still having its own identity, an end credit sequence more jaw-dropping than Black Christmas.
Yes.
I think if I can get away without saying the letter X for the next 5 weeks, I'll be very happy.
I think it'll happen, is it, if we're doing fucking Maxxxine yet?
Well, at least in between now and then. But thank you to everyone who's given us their scores. Thank you for everyone who gave us their ratings. We really appreciate it. Overall, our listeners and audience gave Pearl a score of 7 out of 10.
Not bad.
Right.
A 7 out of 10.
Better than I thought with that 1.5 in there. Ooh.
That just leaves us. I'm gonna go first this week because I feel like we maybe should just get me out of the way. I don't hate Pearl. I don't hate X. I just think that these movies, and much like the episode we just did, are very overrated. I don't think they are this grand masterpiece of cinema that everyone claims them to be. There are some great aspects to both films, including this film, and that includes that big monologue scene, that includes that big grin, like I said, the cinematography score, blah blah blah. I think the plot in both films are lacking. I think it's lacking more in this film than it is in X. I just don't think it is up to the standards that everyone claims that it is. And therefore I feel like I'm possibly going into it with that really sort of disgruntlement about it as well. I'm going to try and not have that when I go in with Maxxxine. I'm going into Maxxxine with pretty low expectations, so that may work in the film's favor as well.
I'm actually dying to hear your review, so I want you to see it and I'm ready to talk about it when we can. Yes.
So with all that being said, like I say, there's still some really positive access to this. I do think X is a better film. I gave X a 7. I'm going to give Pearl a 6. And I think that's about right. I think that's where it is. Candy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, like I said, I knew I would be mostly the outlier on this one. And considering that I like Pearl more than I like X, which I know, weird. And I gave X a 9. I have to give this a 9.5. I see some of the issues people bring up, but I really didn't see them until people brought them up. This is like my kind of jam. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my taste. It's very, like with the bright colors and kind of a bit of a period piece, very much more dialogue heavy, and things to think about, minor things to watch. There's a lot of nuance in it. I don't know, it's just like right for me. I love Mia Goth. Like, I just genuinely love her in any film that she's been in. She brings a lot to the table. She carries this entire movie. And I just, that's why people keep talking about her, is because she just keeps killing it in all these fucking movies. But Pearl, I think, is a real showpiece for her. And it's very unique to horror. We go through these trends in horror, and I think this was just way out of the box of the shit that we were getting. And I thought it was, unique and creative and different. And I think for this movie to work, it needed that, like, to be so unique and so vibrantly different from like we were talking about. I think Ian, you said, like, the grittiness and that 70s graininess to we're going back in time and we want everything's pristine and beautiful and shiny, even though there's dark things taking place. I love that juxtaposition. I love that contrast. So yeah, I have to give it a 9.5 since I like it better than X, but not much better. Just, I do like it better.
Okay, fair enough. Nico finishes off then.
If I hadn't rewatched it, it would have been up there. It would have been like an 8 or a 9. But because I rewatched it I think it's because it's one of those ones where you watch it 1-2 times max. You don't rewatch it more than that. That's really affected the score for me. So I'd say probably about 6.5 for me.
Oh, I have to admit, I didn't think you'd be as close to me with the score there. I thought you would be somewhere in between us.
Honestly, I really kind of expected this. I thought that I was going to be really high and you guys might be mid. So I feel like,
before, if I hadn't rewatched it, I'd have been right up there with you. But it's just, I don't know what it is. It didn't hit the same way as when it was in the cinema.
So let me ask you this: did you rewatch it after you saw Maxxxine?
No, watched it first.
Okay, so I rewatched it after I saw Maxine, and I had watched it several times before. I think rewatching this, like after you watch Maxine, does sort of do something.
Yeah, I've had it on
Suggesting it.
in the background while we've been here.
Yeah,
So I
I
haven't
know you
really
like to
watched it
watch the
properly.
films in the background while we're reviewing them, but
Uh,
you're not getting to pay the same
I'm
level of
I'm not
attention to it.
exactly. So I'm not listening to it. So don't get me wrong. There was bits catching my eye, and it's muted, so I can't hear it.
Put it this way, I don't think I'm gonna rewatch this. I may
Right.
rewatch X.
Yeah. See,
That's
that's
more
the
of your
thing, right?
typical
Yeah.
horror movie, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I would probably rewatch X in a heartbeat, but this, I don't think I'd watch it again for a while. Put it that way. Like if
I
a
would watch
mate was
both,
recommend it, you know.
but I think when we cover Maxine, we should sort of do our own rankings of these films. I think it would be interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see where everybody lies on that because there's another chapter, and I just I'm curious. Like when we do Maxine, I think we should rank
Yeah,
how we
it's
feel.
like how we rank the Evil Dead franchise.
Yes,
Let's
yes,
open
I
that
think we
wound
should do
again.
that. That's gonna be an
Like
interesting one.
I know my ranking because I've seen Maxi.
Well, you're
Oh,
just
I know
gonna.
my ranking. I've already got it written
Well,
down.
Nico, you're
I
just gonna
think
have
we
to
should do
fucking
that.
keep that to yourself for another couple of weeks, okay?
Oh no, I'm not saying fuck all, but I'm like I know my ranking straight away.
I know
Okay.
my ranking too. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
See, I think I know yours, and I think you know mine.
probably.
okay. On that note, all of our
PM me and tell me.
all of our scores combined with the critic scores, our listener scores, gives Pearl an average score of 7.6 out of 10. It
Not
puts
bad.
it in 39th place of the now 106 movies that we've reviewed on the show. So it's in the top third of films that we've covered, I would say,
Respectable.
which is a respectable place. It is 13 places lower than X, but is only 0.4 of a score lower than X, but that's obviously how tight the leaderboard is at that point. It's one place above Gremlins, and it's one place below Saw. So it's a couple of very different movies there.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that's
But
kind of wild.
I think we were talking about this. I can't remember if it was in our last episode or a previous one, Candy. We were talking about, sort of like tiers of horror films and how, certain films just. I think it was when we were talking about The Shining, actually. And we are like, a lot of people consider that to be like a tier 1 horror film. And for us, like, I know especially for you, for me, I love The Shining, I do, but it's not like in that absolute top tier where you have things like Jaws and Halloween and Aliens and that sort of level.
Night of Living
And
Dead.
when we go in, and we were talking about how we were in that sort of 30s to 40s brackets, and I looked at some of the films that were in there, and it was like there's some absolutely huge movies in that sort of area for us. Just to name some of them again, you've got American Werewolf in London, Scream, Army of Darkness, Hellraiser, Gremlins, Saw, Evil Dead Rise, Trick or Treat. These are all the kind of films. The Lost Boys just a few places further up. Like these are the sort of films that are in there, and these are films that are like so well beloved, but that's how tight it is at that sort of top end of the leaderboard. So, of course, Lost Boys was higher.
And then I pulled a switcheroo. It's so random that I happened to switcheroo it with Near Dark. I did not do that on purpose. I don't think I could. I wouldn't know how to do it.
You okay, Nico? Looks like there's some steam coming out your headphones.
Nah, I'm just bored here. Not everything. Fucking time. It's like fucking. Here we go again. Oh,
Okay,
we're gonna make.
If you have to pick one for us to stop talking about, would you rather if we stop talking about Lost Boys or if we stop talking about Terrifier 2?
Terrifier.
Fucking Terrifier, 100%, because that's even worse.
Oh no!
God, it's so hard
You-
to.
You
Oh, that'd be
Terrifier.
hard.
Everything is related to Terrifier for you two for
That's
some
how
reason.
good it is.
It's
Like,
really fucking great.
It's gosh.
We
it's
got a
fucking
new
gosh.
slasher
Well,
king, and
we'll,
God, I've been waiting for a good one.
We'll talk about. We're gonna have to talk about it again when T3 comes out later this year.
Yeah, and in the last quarter of
I
this
don't know.
year,
I
I'm
can't.
ready.
I don't know if you've ever saw this, but I called Terrifier 2 T2 into Nico once, and
And I said
Terminator
I love Terminator 2. It's
the
it's
level
one
of
the best
offense
sequels.
that Nico took to
Yeah.
that was
Like
unbelievable.
anytime you say T2, I am just going to refer to Terminator because
Yeah.
Terrifier is not T2.
Anyways, moving on. We will be covering Maxxxine in a couple of weeks. Before then, me and Nico are going to be doing our own top 5 episode. Stay tuned to our social media platforms. We'll be putting a poll up to see which top 5 topic people want me and Nico to cover. I know next time, Candy, you're on, you want to do one about sort of Scream Queens or Final Girls, so I think that's probably where we'll go with that. But I'll put.
I want to be on for that one, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'll fucking do it. That'll be great.
But I'll put a poll up for me and Nico. So Nico, if you have anything that you want to go into the poll, let me know, and we'll get that up in the poll. We'll do a couple more of the catch ups for Candy. Before we do that, I'm gonna do the end housekeeping first, just so we can do that and get out of here. So if you want to follow us on our social media platforms, it's X at Damn Podcast, Facebook and Instagram, Pod of the Damned. Email us at podofthedamned@gmail.com, and you can subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/Pod of the Damned. I might just cut that and paste that at the beginning part where I fucked it up.
You should.
Oh, thanks. But obviously,
because it was the worst you've ever done.
It was like the worst I've ever done. But obviously, at the end of each of our episodes, we asked Candy to give us our scores for a few of the movies that we have previously reviewed on the podcast before she became a permanent member. The leaderboard is fairly filling up. We're catching up with the movies pretty quickly, so we're starting to get to the point where the leaderboard's really starting to take shape as a 3-person podcast. This week, the 3 movies I want to talk about. So we're going to kick off with another prequel movie this week, and I would like to know your score for the 2022 Predator prequel, Prey, which currently sits in 21st. Obviously, it might not be there on your leaderboard because the leaderboard's been changing.
I gave Prey a 5. I mean, for what it was good. It's not my franchise or like my kind of interest, but Sean was into it, so I saw it. It's all right. I just know that I'm not the audience for it, so I had to like land in the middle for that one. Like, it was watchable. It was good. It's not my movie. It's not my franchise. I give it no mind most of the time.
That is lower than I thought it was going to be. We were both really, really high on that film.
It's not my kind of movie, so it didn't grab me enough. So I think that's probably why it went so low. Like, I'm just like, oh, I mean, it's cool, I guess, but I don't know.
I mean, no, fair enough. Like that's you know, your thoughts.
That shocked me. I thought you would have loved that.
Nico gave Prey a perfect 10.
Holy shit! Wow. I mean, I think if it was like something I was like really interested in, or if it was my kind of move, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are certain things that it's just not for me. I know I'm not the audience, but I gave it a 5 because I was trying to be fair. You know.
Okay.
See, I thought you would have liked that one because of the final girl, because she's a really good final girl.
She's cool, but I don't know. I tried really hard.
Okay. Well, that's really, really impacted the position of that. So Prey was in 21st place with an overall 8.1. It's now in 34th place. You've dropped it 13 places on the leaderboard. With a now average score of 7.7. So it's went from an 8.1 to 7.7. Again, it is in that portion of the leaderboard where literally a couple of points is like the different, like 10, 15 movies worth of difference. So, yeah, but it does drop it from 21st down to 34th place. So, yeah, big moves there. The second movie, we're going festive for the second movie. It's currently in 59th place. I would like your review, or your score, sorry, on Krampus.
I'm just trying to find it. I actually haven't seen it. That's one of the ones I haven't seen.
Okay. Well,
There's a couple of not available scores. I'm sorry about that.
That's absolutely fine. I probably should get into the habit of telling you what I'm gonna ask you beforehand. On that note, then, we'll go to my next one, which is a sequel to one we asked you a couple of weeks ago. It's currently all the way down in 82nd. Your score for Saw 2.
Saw 2. Well, I'm sorry, it takes me a minute because of the changes from when I wrote this down, but to locate them okay, there it is. Okay, I gave Saw 2 an 8.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Saw movies, especially after 3, but I thought Saw 2 was a pretty solid follow-up to Saw 1, which I absolutely adore. Saw 1, I give that a 10. But you know, Saw 2 is really solid.
Yeah, I think when we reviewed it, Nico, we both sort of felt like Saw 2 was a movie that was just like overhated. Like
Yeah.
we both agreed that it wasn't Saw. Like Saw is the
Yeah.
is the best movie in that franchise, and I think it will always will.
Oh,
Be.
100%. But it
Absolutely.
progressively gets worse after that. So it's
But,
like the second one's the next best, and then
we-
the third, and then so on.
we definitely thought that Saw 2 was overhated, so we were relatively okay with that as well. You have moved it up a fair good places, because it was in 82nd place with an average of just 5.7. It's now in 74th place, so it's gone up 8 places on the leaderboard with an average of 6. So it has jumped up there a fair few places, and you'll be pleased to know, Nico. You'll be pleased to know, Nico, that means it's gone above Terrifier, so Terrifier's 1 place lower.
That's good.
On that note,
Silver
then,
linings and all that jazz.
on that note, then, I'll quickly just pick a different movie, if you don't mind, Candy. Would you be able, currently in 45th place, then, be able to give us your score for Don't Breathe?
Don't breathe. In a different spot. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Don't breathe. Oh, I gave Don't Breathe a 6.
Okay.
I think it has moments of greatness. But I don't feel like the movie as a whole is great. I mean, what it has working for it is good, but I think that it suffers at times from other things. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those like almost should have been on my honorable mentions, but overhyped. But it was a pretty solid movie. So.
Yeah. Nico, you were pretty high on it when we reviewed it. I don't know if
Yeah.
either of you have seen the sequel. Don't.
No, I didn't. I wasn't even inclined.
You said that to me.
I think the thing for the first one is like there's some really, really cool aspects to that movie, and they do some really, really interesting things. They handle specific subject matters pretty poorly, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we'll not go too deep into it. That's a different conversation. Don't Breathe was in 45th place with an average of 7.3. It's dropped now to 47th with an average of 7.1. So it's dropped 2 places. So it's not massively impacted its score there.
I'm really sorry about Prey, guys. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's fine.
that one shocked me because out of the movies you've liked, that's one I thought you would have liked. That's why I'm surprised.
Prey dropping that much means that Lost Boys is 1 place higher, Nico.
No, I don't mean it that way. I just thought, you know, it
does seem like something I like, but you have to realize like I've avoided sort of that franchise for a really long time, and I was never into it. And I think as far as that franchise goes, it was good, but it's like I just was so burnt out from
I think the thing is for me, like Predator is great, right? It's a great action film / kind of horror film. Like I in my opinion, anyway. Nothing that came after it though was good. Like literally nothing. Predator 2 is not a good film. Like Aliens versus. Let's not talk about Aliens versus.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. The versus movies are off limits.
Yeah, you know, and then you had like Predators and The Predator, and they weren't good films either. Like in fact, they were really not good films.
So I think, and see on the edge of that, Prey comes along. I'm like, cool, I'm burnt out, but this movie is pretty decent. Yeah. So I thought I gave it a pretty, okay score for me. I don't know.
Anyways,
it grabbed me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, it's like a different film from the Predator franchises. It's so far out of it.
Yeah.
And they're remaking the Versus, by the way.
Oh, Versus movies need to fuck all the way off.
You love you love a good Versus movie, Ken.
No.
See, the thing is,
versus somebody.
The comics for Alien vs Predator were fucking brilliant, and there was like, oh, they're going to copy the comic books, and it was just they never did. We
haven't done a Versus movie on the show before.
I know one that we should never ever do.
Just the one. So
it's the one that I actually have suggested and we didn't do because we're running out of time.
We're not. I've promised Candy that we're not going to do Freddy versus Jason.
That is the one that shall not be named. I can't do it. I had vitriol for it in my top 5, and I'm like, that's that.
We could maybe do a bit of Aliens versus Predator. we could maybe dissect AVP. Are
you laughing about what I just sent you?
Yeah, because that's what I thought it was as well.
Yeah, and I thought so I was right. Okay. So that's something.
Anyways, on that note, right, let's get the fuck out of here. Thank you very much to everyone who has downloaded and listened to this episode. As I said, next week's show will be another top 5 episode, so pay attention to our social media channels because we'll be deciding the topic. We'll announce the topic on there. And then the week after that, we will be talking about Maxxxine, which I think everyone will be nice and excited for. So hopefully, please go and check us out. Subscribe to us in all those places that I've mentioned a couple of times on the show before. Candy, where can people find you?
You can find me at Candy Final Girl on X and Candy the Final Girl on Instagram. And I have Linktree. It's Linktree/Candy the Final Girl.
Awesome. Nico?
Yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes just like to throw it at you to see if it'll catch you out. Anyways, you can find
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
You can find Nico on this podcast.
I'm mainly in bars. See me in person, I'm even worse.
Yeah, I know. But yes, thank you very, very much to everyone who has downloaded and listened to this podcast. Candy and Nico, thank you very, very much once again for joining me on another episode.
Thank you for having me.
Until next week on the Pod of the Damned, just remember, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.